Welcome to A Poor Millionaire. My name is Curtis, and this is the story of me. Guys, everybody starts off in life at different areas and different places in their lives, and some people do really well, and some people have all the advantages. I have had a lot of setbacks. I've had a lot of situations that were very horrible. Some that I'll go into and some that I won't because they were so bad. But in life, everybody has a problem. The only reason why I share these things is because some of you might be interested, and some of you might, if you're just starting out in life, maybe you'll understand that no matter where you start, it doesn't mean you got to stay there. You can always figure out a way to get to another place. You can always be successful. You can always move from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. All right, so that's the reason why I share this. It's going to be a two-parter. This is the first part. This is my life in a nutshell. All right, guys, I started off, I was born in Florida. My family moved to Texas, and I now live in Texas. I love Texas. Texas was a great place to grow up. My childhood was pretty simple, but, you know, got beat up like, I don't know. I guess the kids today don't get beat up, but when I was going to school, that was part of the initiation was just growing up, you got beat up by random kids. And if you went to a public school, you just got beat up. Now, I did go, I was lucky and fortunate enough to go to a private school for a little bit of time. That was paid for by my grandparents because my parents were poor. They tried to help us out. So I did go to a private school for like a year, and that was fun. Didn't get beat up. Then I went to the public school. Day one, you get the knuckle sandwich, and day 27, you're still getting the knuckle sandwich. So I got beat up in that school, and that didn't work well. I'm going to tell you all the bad things, guys. I'm going to tell you all these horrible things because you need to know. All right, there are people out. Number one, if you're a successful person and you're lucky and you got all the good breaks in life, you need to know there are people out there who worked their butt off. There are people out there that suffered. All right, and I don't tell you guys this stuff because I don't normally tell anybody this stuff because I'm not tooting my horn. I'm not trying to tell you, hey, my life was rough and blah, 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 blah. You know, because my life isn't rough now, and I've earned a lot of stuff. So, you know, it's like I feel bad about telling this stuff, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Eventually, my family, when I got up to about 15, which is like the worst age to move, we moved to New Mexico. And by the time I was 15, or by the time I was old enough, or 12, 13, around that age when we moved, I finally stopped getting beat up in school, and I started giving more than I got, right? Then we moved to New Mexico. Well, when we moved into New Mexico when I was about 13 years old, we moved in another district, another school, and this was predominantly Hispanic. And I was a good old Texas boy, and I walked into school and said, "How y'all doing?" And those Hispanics did take kindly to that, so they whooped my ass. And they continued to beat me up pretty much every single day, going to school, coming back from school. And that's pretty much how, and basically I became a hoodlum because that's the only way to survive, guys. Guys, if you're in an environment where you have to beat up people to survive, that's what you do. That's just how it becomes. Eventually, if you're surrounded by people who like to fight every day, you have to fight to survive, to keep people from beating you up. So basically, I didn't learn anything in school because I was too busy fighting for middle school and high school. When I eventually got out of high school and I got a GED, didn't graduate from high school. I got out of high school, got my GED, or got out of that school, and finally I went to college, and I went to a community college. The first day at community college, I immediately went into, okay, I'm going to have to beat somebody up because that's just how I was used to it. This is community college. This is college. And the first day, no one came up and tried to, the normal pattern, when you go into a rough school, the normal pattern is they're basically, the bully's going to come and test you out, right? He's going to come and define the pecking order. He's going to show you he's the boss, and you got to figure out whether or not you can take him. That's just, and when I went to the college, my first response was, I'm looking over my shoulders, I'm ready to rumble, right? This is college, right? No one bothered me. No one bullied me. No one said anything. Everyone was nice and kind. And suddenly I was like, been in fights where I've gotten a broken arm. I've been in fights where I've gotten a broken nose. I've done it all, right? So when I got to that college and I didn't have any of these issues. I went in, suddenly no one was trying to beat me up, right? So this is a new experience. I loved it. And guys, I'd always enjoyed school. There were opportunities when I moved to a school Just moved away part-time for a little while to live with some relatives. I went to a nice school, and there was no fighting there, no crazy stuff going on, no hoodlum stuff. My grades went up and everything was going great. Then I had to move back to the hood and the bloodbath and back to the rope-a-dope, right? So I went to but eventually, like I said, I got into a community college. Tried that out. But guys, I didn't learn anything in high school. I was too busy fighting. I didn't learn anything in middle school. I was too busy fighting. Now, my dad always educated me very well. So I did get an education in money. I just didn't have an education in everything else. I did get an education in warfare because my dad loves to read military books. So I got an education on all the generals. Reading Patton, reading all the other generals. General Lee, all the different military strategies, got that down pat. Basic military strategy, got that down pat from my dad. Learned all the different countries from my dad. Learned economics from my dad. So I had all these things in aces, no problem. No issues there with economics, money, which is hilarious. My father is a very smart man, but he doesn't really like to be rich. He likes to live as poorly as possible. But at the same time, though, he understands economics better than most men. Most people I know, my father understands economics better than them. But yet at the same time, though, he lives extremely poor. He lives and does it very well. He survives on very little money, and he likes it that way. He basically, everything he's got's used, and he keeps everything forever. He gets an old beat-up car, he buys it for $500, and he drives that around. And he doesn't have to do this. These are choices that he's making with his life. But back to my story. All right, community college. I screwed up. I didn't get a degree. All right, I didn't have a plan. That's the other thing. I didn't have a plan or a clue. I was in college, and I was like, I didn't even know what I was doing there. This is what you do. All right, nobody told me, hey, you need to do this, and I didn't have a goal. I didn't have a plan. I was just basically, college was fun, so I went there. I had fun. I hung out. I went to the classes. Economics. I aced every single economics without ever cracking a book. I didn't even know what to do. I mean, it's like the economics, I could basically teach the class, right? All the other classes, though, a little bit harder. Math, harder. English, harder. This was back when schools were a little bit more a lot harder than they are now. Now, you can get A's with basically showing up. 4 or 5 years ago, I took a couple community colleges for fun, and I was trying to get my degree, and I was like, okay, well, why not? I'll just go do it. I went and took these courses. Guys, you just show up now, you get an A or a B. I never opened my books, never did anything. I just showed up to class, and they give you automatic B. If you just show up and scribble some stuff on the paper, you pass. It's incredible. They're so easy now versus the way they used to be. The way college used to mean something. You had to be literate. You had to actually be able to spell words. I can't spell words, so it's amazing that I could pass a college course. That brings me to one of my other downfalls, guys. I'm dyslexic. All right, I don't know if you've noticed, but I mix up my words every once in a while. My spelling is atrocious, which is hilarious because when you're sitting in a company and you own the company, and I've done this before, and I'll have 20, 30, 50 employees, right? And I'll be typing something, I'll misspell it, and then one of the employees will be like, ha, you don't know how to spell. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, get back to work. That's great. That's awesome. They feel like they got you. They're like they got one up on you because they know how to spell, right? And I've tried, guys. I've tried to learn how to spell. I'm just not good at it. Spelling is a weakness on weakness and strengths, right? Spelling is a weakness. That is something that I can't get, right? Now, my spelling does get better as I get older, all right? And but it's part of my dyslexia, and it's just never gonna go away. I've gotten used to it, and obviously I haven't done too bad. And that's another thing, guys. Guys, if you're dyslexic or you have problems in school, that doesn't mean you can't survive. It doesn't mean you can't become successful. You can just pick a field that doesn't require you to spell. And nowadays with Google, you can look up any word, anytime, super fast, easy, and spell check is on pretty much every single program. It's extremely easy for you to make it look like you know how to spell. And guys, if you notice in my comments, when I'm typing, I'm not exactly writing Shakespeare, all right? It's not my best, writing is not my best skill. Talking is more of one of my better skills, right? Back to the story of my life. Flunked out of community college. I've had so many different jobs. I've been a day laborer. I've done plumbing. I've worked on plumbing crews. I've worked on digging ditches. When I was young, I worked with my father and I fixed rental houses. I did plumbing. I've done roofing. I've done it all. I was a sacking groceries. I have worked at fast food. When I first moved to Texas, I worked as a waiter and I waited on tables. I've done all the crappy jobs you could possibly imagine. And eventually, and all this, when I first moved out, this is the next thing. Next major event in my life is when I moved out on my own. That was it. I moved out basically about 17, and both my mom and my dad were not financially stable. There was no way to live with my mom or with my dad. Impossible. Neither one of them were financially stable, so I was on my own. There was no safety net. There was no backup. There was nobody coming to save me. Most of my grandparents have passed away. That was it. It was just me and me alone. Succeed or fail, homeless or not homeless. And guys, I've been basically, I was homeless for one time. I was homeless. I was sitting in my car and I was basically trying to figure out my financial situation, and I just got lucky and I got some extra money. I got a place and I got into it. But I was homeless for about a week, about 2 weeks. And I was praying everything was going to work out the way that I was hoping it's going to work out. And I got lucky. I got lucky at that last second, and I didn't have to stay in my car any longer. So I've been homeless. I've been at the very, 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 very bottom. But I didn't really blame anybody, and I didn't really feel super sorry for myself. The worst times for me, I think, was when I very first starting out and I was alone and I was working long days and I was living in my apartment and I was lonely and didn't have any friends and I was just starting out, and I think that was probably the lowest point. And the other thing is my second apartment in Dallas that I had, it had no AC and it had no heaters, and I wasn't smart enough to go buy a space heater and use that to heat the place because I basically used blankets and I just roughed it out. Guys, it got so cold in that apartment. It got so hot. There's like one AC for like 2 big giant rooms, and it was miserable. So that was probably the lowest point in my life. Now the apartment before that I actually had central and was pretty decent. No, actually that's the next apartment. I moved from that one to a nicer one that had its central AC. So that was my first big move, was to move from downtown Dallas to North Dallas. And then when I moved into my nice apartment, had AC. And this is where I finally started working in sales. I got my first sales job. And actually, you know what, this is going to be hilarious and people are going to make fun of me on the internet. One of my very first sales jobs was selling purses at the mall. All right. So this is a gym. I know if any of my friends are watching this, they're going to be like, man, this is great stuff. We're really going to tear him up, right? Okay. Anyway, I would sell purses. I worked in the mall. There are a couple different jobs. Souvenirs. I'd sell souvenirs. I had all sorts of different souvenirs on carts in the mall. And I was a decent salesperson. I was selling the stuff. And usually here's how it started off. I'd be working on one cart. And the other guy say, hey, I need a little extra help. Can you work these extra days? And I was a workaholic. That's all I did, guys. Because I didn't have any money and didn't have any friends. So basically all I did was work. That was it. That was my entire life. So I worked double shifts. So another guy on the cart said, hey, you look like a fine young man. I need somebody to work on the weekend or this next day. And I'm like, sure. So I go work for him. One day of me working there, they would instantly say, look, I've got to have you here. How much money do I need to pay you to get you here? Because my sales were always amazing. And I don't know why. I mean, I guess I was just a little bit of a natural salesperson, right? So I'd move to the next big cart. And the same thing, I get a raise. I started off at minimum wage, and then the next one was I started getting commission. I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm making commission. I've never made commission in my life. So next job, these are all crappy jobs in the mall, selling trinkets, and then I was working on that cart. Then I went and worked on the next place. The next place was selling handbags. And I worked, like same as before. The guy says, hey, I need a little extra help. I'm short-handed. You want to come work a day? And I was like, sure, I'll work a day. Comes back, presses the cash register. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. He's like, what'd you do? And I was like, man, I sold. That's what I do. Right? So I was like, I mean, I'm here for 8 hours. I'm going to put in the 8 hours. I'm going to knock it out. Like, why not? And people liked me, so it worked out, right? So then the guy hired me away from there. Then the next guy. Now, I was working in the same place. There's guys taking pictures on a bull. This was a great story, guys. They're taking pictures on a bull. And the guy says, hey, I have a shift open. I need you. And I was like, sure. So I worked one day for him. And he immediately said, I will pay you anything to come work for me. Because he came in, same thing. Hit the cash register. He opened it up. He had like a $3,000 night. He never, in the entire time of ever owning that place, had a $3,000 night. He was like, oh my God. He's like, my God, Curtis. He's like, I will pay you anything. And this was my highest paying job once I got that job, because I had a system, guys. I had a sales, I did a strategy. Basically, every time I've gone into a job, guys, what I've done is I look at the strategy. Now, remember, this whole time, though, guys, I'm living in a crappy place, and I'm driving a crappy car. Now, obviously, I keep buying is the fanciest, nicest car I can possibly buy because I'm being stupid. I have zero savings. I have zero investments. I don't own my house. The entire time I'm living in a crappy apartment. And this is me trying to make it in the world. And I've got no backup. I have no one to call. They're literally, my mother lived in Florida. My dad lived in Egypt or somewhere else in the world. Had no idea where he was. He'd check in with me maybe every couple of months, right? So I am 100%. I got no relatives. I am on my own. One of the reasons why I was basically pushing the limits of everything that I got. Every opportunity that came along, I pushed the limits of it. So I got this sales job of taking pictures of girls on the bull. And basically what I would do to get all these people to come out of the bar was I give a couple girls for free on the bull, take the picture, give the picture to the girls on the bull, everybody in the bar would empty out, start taking pictures, I'd create a party, and then basically I just round them up over and over and over. I was selling it. And I wasn't out there going, hey, you want a picture on the bull? Basically, I'd get some girls, I'd say, hey, you guys want a free picture on the bull? And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I am sure. They jump on the bull, get a free picture, print it off, hand it to them. 50 people come out to watch the commotion because the girls are drunk. They're on the bull. They're acting all crazy. Bam. Now I've got sales. Boom, 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 boom. And I line them up. You know, same thing I did with the purse. When I got the purse job on the purse cart. Mary Kate come to town and I'd line those ladies up and sell them bag after bag after bag after bag after bag. Guys, I created a strategy, a sales strategy, and I made it work. And I didn't even know what I was doing. This was, I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to toot my own horn, but basically this is just raw talent, guys. Because I had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't read a single sales book. Didn't have a clue. I was just trying to survive. I was hustling, but I was hustling, but I wasn't hustling. You know, there are other ways to hustle, and I wasn't using those ways. You know, stealing from people. I was doing it legit, and I was trying to obviously not do anything that would be illegal to end up in jail, right? So I was legally hustling, legally selling goods and services to people and making money, and I was good at it. Guys, when I was younger, I used to hustle playing pool. That's one of the ways I made money. I've hustled a lot of different ways, guys. Won't go into all of them. Not all of them are perfectly legit, but this is years and years ago, so obviously you can't get prosecuted for things you did in your past. But I've done, you know, things happen, guys. Especially when you're in a bad environment, you become your environment. So my key is get out of that environment. Hustle your way out of it. The same hustle that you use in the bad environment, you can use in a good environment. You can bring yourself out. Now comes the next part of my life. The next strategy that I use to get away from working at the mall for the rest of my life, right? Because that's basically where I was trapped at. Now I'm a guy working in the mall. How do I get out of this? Now, when I was working there, I started thinking about getting my own cart, and I started figuring out the math. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna get be my own owner, my own boss, and get my own cart. And then I was like, I just don't really want to do that. It's like, it just isn't, the money's not really that great. The hours aren't that great. And I just don't feel like this is the perfect environment for me. So the next step was, I had a girlfriend that I'd gotten from, that girl I was dating that worked at Zales. And she got a job working at a company called ATC. I like to call it Always Total Chaos, but that's not what it is. Automated technology company. And they basically had a contract with American Express. So this is my first real 9-to-5, well, sort of 9-to-5 job. And I got the job working at American Express. Now, when I started working at American Express, this was a great opportunity, and this got me off the ground. It got me into a professional environment where I could learn professional skills, where I could also hone my phone skills, hone my phone selling skills. They put us in a training class. They trained us for a month. They put us out. I did exceptionally well. I became one of the top guys there, but I'm going to make this to do a very long story and a very short story. I was passed over for opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, basically because I was a guy. The top management was all female, and that's basically all they hired for the top management. They just didn't want, a lot of people in top management didn't like me. It was very political, and I didn't know how. I really had no clue on how to I was nowhere near. What I knew how to do is produce. I knew how to train people. I knew how to be productive. I knew the system inside and out. I was the #1 guy there. If you had a question about anything, you came to me and I had the answer. Everybody came to me. Everybody wanted the answer. Trainers would call me. The supervisors would call me. The head supervisor would call. Literally people in the server room would be calling me, asking me questions on how to fix things, and I would tell them how to do it. I was the go-to guy. I was on the help desk. I was the smartest guy in the room because basically I just learned everything. I made it my job to learn everything about everything. I absorbed all the information. This is where I learned to type. I taught myself to type. This is because I'd never been in typing school. I didn't know how to type. So while I was working there, while I was on the phone, I started learning to actually type without the hunt and peck method. I would sit there and practice just typing what's on the screen while I was on a phone call with somebody. And then I got super fast, and this is how I learned to type. So basically, I was a learning machine. And this is what you should do when you get in an environment. Guys, no matter what kind of job you have, there's always something you can learn. There's always information. You can learn customer service. You work in customer service, learn how to deal with people, learn how to put a smile on your face even when they're being mean to you, learn how to be nice even when they're not nice. There's always something you can learn. Learn the system. Learn how they do it. Learn everything you can learn, and then move to the next level, guys. And this is what happened there. Look, you know what? I am so glad that they didn't hire me into supervisor. Because if they had hired me on as a supervisor, and I'd gotten into that higher group, I might have been able to get paid more money, and then I'd get stuck as a supervisor, making $30,000 a year, $35,000 a year. And I would basically assume, okay, that's my new job title. And then I would have gone to another company and I would have done that same thing. Luckily, I got fired. So, and I know it's a much longer story than all this, but I'm going to try to make it short. Trying to compact it, right? All right, and here's what happened. I was the smartest guy. I knew it. And I got people who weren't very smart giving me stuff. I threw a fit because that's what you do when you're the smartest guy and you're surrounded by stupid people. But obviously throwing a fit can get you in trouble. And when I got in trouble, they fired me and they marched me out. And this is one of the first jobs I got fired from, so I was very sad about it. But at the same time, though, I knew because all the stuff that I had accomplished there, I knew I'd be okay. So it was the best thing that happened to me was get fired. And I knew that, and here's the stupid part, guys. After I got fired from that job, I had money saved over because at this point, I'd finally started saving money. I was making enough money, pay my bills, and have a little extra, and I maxed out my hours there, so I had tons of money. So I had enough money where I wasn't hurting. That's one thing. I had my emergency safety fund in place. So luckily, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. So I wasn't sweating. So this time, I decided I want a professional sales job. I want to work inside. I went found an article, help wanted ad, went into the job, interviewed. The guy said, hey, we're doing computer sales in an office 9 to 5. Does that sound like something you're interested in? I said yes. Then I went home and I waited for them to call, which is absolutely insanity, right? Looking back upon it, I should have gone and applied 20 to 30 different places and then picked the best opportunity. But when I heard they wanted computer sales person, a sales job, 9 to 5, I said, this is what I want to do, right? This is the area I want to learn. I want to learn it backwards and forward. I don't know anything. I knew a lot about computers. My dad, one of the things great about my dad was he always bought a computer. Always had a computer since the very beginning of computers. So I knew a lot about computers and I knew a lot about sales and I felt like I could do the job. But I'd never done phone sales and I'd never been 9 to 5 real professional sales job. So I got that job and then basically the exact same thing. Now, how this starts off, you get the job, right? I walked into the sales floor. I immediately started doing my strategy. Went into my head. Okay. And I asked them, I said, who is the best-selling top sales guy here? And they said, that guy's name is Tony. And I was like, Tony, I'm your new best friend. I said, they'd ask me, where would you like to sit? And I said, I want to sit next to Tony, right? And Tony was if I thought I was a natural salesperson, I had nothing on Tony. Tony was the natural salesperson. That guy could talk you into anything. I will never be as good a salesperson as Tony was. Tony was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I learned everything I could learn from Tony, but I knew I couldn't do what Tony could do. All right? I could not be as good a salesperson as Tony. But I knew that I could out-strategy Tony. You can beat anybody no matter how talented they are. Tony's talent was amazing. But lots of time with talented people, they're lazy, right? They're not motivated, all right? Tony could basically close 8 out of 10 phone calls. I could close 3 out of 10 phone calls. If he worked every hour, there's no way. If he worked and called back to back, there's no way I could have ever beaten that guy. Never, ever, ever could have beaten that guy, right? But he didn't work hard, and he didn't work as hard as I did. So I worked hard. And the great thing about when you work hard is you get better. You go from 3 sales up to 4 sales, and then 5 sales, and eventually you're catching up. Now, you're never going to catch up with that extremely talented individual, guys, unless you are the talented guy. And if you are the talented guy, man, count your lucky stars that you've been blessed with unlimited talent. It's like a magical power, right? And I've seen very talented people, but at the same time, talent sometimes counts against you. And this guy was a classic example of talent counting against you. Because you're so talented, it's so easy, you slack. You're slack. Because all you got to do is basically, you can go get your coffee, you can make a couple phone calls, you can talk to the wife, you can talk to the girlfriend, you can relax, you can check on the high school football scores, you can check on the college scores, check on all the football, you can do your fantasy football, and then, okay, about 10 o'clock, you can start making your phone calls, and then about 11:30, you're like, okay, well, now it's time to go to lunch, right? So, and he still was the top salesperson there, right? Well, I worked my butt off, and it took me a while, guys. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't beat Tony in a month. I didn't beat him in 2 months. It took me probably about 6 months, guys. 6 months of just plowing into brick walls over and over and over and over and over and over and over, just knocking myself out on brick walls because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know how to sell on the phone, and I was scared. Like, talking to somebody on the phone was so much harder than talking to somebody who walked up. Somebody who walked up to you and asked you a question, they're already interested. All you got to do is basically say, well, hi, how you doing? Okay, well, this is what I have to offer. What do you think? You just do the whole, hey, what do you think? Oh, great. Oh, you like that? Oh, that looks nice. That's it. It's super easy, right? But somebody calls you on the phone, they say hello, and then you have to go, hi, my name is Curtis, and I'd like to sell you some stuff, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, we don't accept sales phone calls, so you're just going to have to call. You need to send us an email or something, right? It's a whole different ballgame, guys. whole different ball game. Didn't know how to do it. It took me just ages to and that's the other thing is I had already done sales and I already thought, hey, I'm good at this. And basically for the first 2 weeks, I didn't sell anything, guys. Anything, not a damn thing. And basically it starts coming to that point where the boss starts looking at you going, are you sure this is the best thing for it? You know what that means? That means if you don't make a damn sale in the next 2 or 3 days, I'm gonna fire you ass, right? So you're like, okay, I need to do something. And basically I sat down and I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm gonna do, and I will not fail, and I will make this happen. And I made it happen. I made it happen. I made that sell happen. I made it. This was the start of my career, and I knew it. I said, I cannot fail at this. This is what I want to do. And then I made that sell, and I made the next sell, and I made the next sell, and I rose through the ranks and basically taking people out left and right. Obviously I took out the low-hanging fruit, the guys who were barely selling. Immediately I wiped them out, and then I wiped out the guys in the middle part, and then I started coming for Tony, right? And then eventually I became top salesperson, period. All right, it took me a year. Yeah, in 6 months I was competing with Tony, but I wasn't beating Tony. It's like I'd reach high enough to touch the sky, and then Tony would slap me back down because you know what? All Tony had to do is start working a little harder, and boom, he's right above me. So, and then he's number one again, right? That's the worst thing about talented people, right? They're just doing barely just enough to get by, and you finally catch up with them, and you're running as fast as you can, and then they just swipe you down, right? Because it's so easy for them, right? Tony get on the phone, make a couple phone calls, boom, he's got better sales than me, and swipe me back down, right? But I'm number two, right? But I'm coming in with a vengeance, right? And I'm getting better and better every day. And here's another trick that I did. What I did was I'd go to each person on that sales floor, and I'd say, what is this guy doing, and how's he making it work? This guy's using this technique. And I'd say, okay, I'm going to learn what I can learn from him. And then I go to this guy. What is he doing? I learned his technique. What is this guy doing? And I took all of their techniques, and I put them into my milkshake, and I shook it all around, and I came up with my own technique, my own strategy, and I picked the thing that produced, and that's the other thing, I tested different stuff out. I found the thing that worked the best, and then I became a monster at sales, and I blew, and then eventually Tony couldn't stop me. And you know what Tony did? Once I eventually beat him, he quit. He quit when he could no longer compete against me, because there's nothing worse than you being more talented than an individual and him still beating you, and just thoroughly beating you. It's demoralizing, because he knew how great he was. He knew how talented he was, and he knew that this kid, that's the other thing, a guy half his age, was coming in there and just headbutting him nonstop. And you know what? That's one thing is when you're a young kid and you're kicking ass, you have zero humility, right? Zero humility. And then on top of that, when you're a young kid in sales and you are number one in the company, guess who can't get fired? It's like that was a good thing and a bad thing, because politics are a killer, guys. I almost got fired so many times for politics at that company. And you know what? Basically, people left that company because of me, because I was a steamroller, guys. I steamrolled over them. Basically I was like, I'm going to produce X amount of sales, and if you get in my way in any shape or form, I will destroy you. I will literally destroy you. I will make your life a living nightmare. I was a horrible employee, guys. I'll admit it. All right? But at the same time, though, it's like I wanted to succeed, and all these people are trying to stop me, all right? I had an operations manager constantly giving me problems. Everything's an issue. Everything's a problem. And then purchaser, you're like, hey, I need to purchase these items. And the purchaser's like, well, I can't get them at those prices. And I'm like, I know you can. Go make it happen. You know, and they're like, oh, well, maybe later on. And it's like, my customer needs them tomorrow. All right? And I don't think you understand. I'm making money on this. Would you please pick up that phone and do your job, right? And of course, I didn't do it subtly. I didn't do it nicely. I mean, I had a lot of fun, but at the same time, though, it was a wrecking ball, right? And at the same time, though, I was learning because, like, at the same time, though, I was like, you know, it's like, you have to figure out how to get him to do what you want him to do. So I was also learning, hey, maybe I need to be a little nicer to get this guy to do what I want him to do, right? So I did learn a little bit of tact, and I started learning the corporate thing, because here's one thing I realized. There was another sales rep there, number 3 guy. And that number 3 guy had it so easy there. Like, he'd walk in and they'd almost pour him coffee as he walked by. And he'd walk to his desk, and his name was John. And there's a couple Johns there, so don't get yourself confused which John you are, right? He'd sit down in his office, he'd sit down at his desk, and he'd make a couple phone calls, he'd sip his coffee, and they basically treated him like royalty. And I was like, why are they so nice to number 3? You know, it's like, he's not really that great. He's just, you know, he's basically a butt kisser, right? And I was like, okay, all right, I gotta soften up a little bit here, right? I gotta make some friends. I gotta do the water cooler. Guys, I hated the water cooler. I hated talking to people and kissing their butt and making that small talk. I was there to make money. I wasn't there to make friends, right? And these guys, it's like a lot of these sales environments, obviously I couldn't lose my job, but at the same time, people would make my job harder than it needed to be. So I started learning skills on how to deal with people. And I'd already read Win Friends That Influence People. Highly recommend the book. I'd already read it before because I'd had this issue before, because I am a type A personality. And when I see something I want, I go after it with a ton of vigor, and I basically am a steamroller, right? I steamroll over everybody. So I read that book again. I also read, one of the other books I read going up to making all these sales was, as I was reading books, this whole time I'm trying to beat Tony and I'm trying to become a great salesperson, I was reading books. Tony wasn't reading books. Nobody else in that company was reading books. Nobody else was spending their time getting educated and thinking about how they can succeed. And nobody else had a goal. I had a goal. My goal was to make $100,000 working in that company. And I told the boss, I said, hey, my goal is to make 100K here. I'll give you the synopsis. I never made 100K there. Basically, this was my first sales job. This was my first real job. Real 9 to 5. Real office where you drove to work, where I had to learn things. And I learned, guys, you got to learn everything. When you get into an environment and you want to learn, I mean, I don't know why I wanted to know how everything worked. I wanted to know how my computer worked. I wanted to know how my monitors worked. I wanted to set up different monitors. I loved the whole process of everything. I wanted to know how the products we were selling. I loved the product. We're selling CPUs and memory. I loved memory. I loved computers. I wanted my own. This is the first time I built my own computer. I bought all the parts. I built it myself. I put it together. I loaded it. I spent basically 10 hours on the weekend building my own computer from scratch. The very first computer I ever owned personally. Built it from scratch by myself. Loaded it. Got it working, played a video game with it, and I did all this by myself with little to no help from anyone else. But I learned everything I could possibly learn. I learned purchasing, I learned online sales, I learned memory, I learned CPU, I learned computers, I learned monitors, I learned office, I learned politics, I learned employees, I learned how to deal with people. They had me as a supervisor for a while until I quit. Because I was like, this supervisor's just name only. I'm not making any money. I just want to go back to sales. So they put me back in sales. And then I lost all my customers. One time I was working there, they moved me to online sales. They stole all my customers. And then they brought me back. The online sales went under. They moved me back into sales. And they're like, basically back to the whole routine of, if you don't make money, we're going to fire you. And I was like, and they put me in a little tiny room. And because I was antisocial, and they're like, we're going to get rid of you, blah, 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 blah. And they're basically trying to fire me. And basically what I did was I went back to being number 1 in a very short amount of time. And I was doing so well that they actually moved one of my friends in there, and he says, hey, I want to sit with you. And basically we had our own little salesperson in a closet. Our own little sales room in a closet. I mean, there's enough room for us to sit comfortably. But at the same time, though, I mean, you could touch the walls, you know, very easily, the 2 walls with your hands. So guys, I learned every single thing. I absorbed the information. Guys, I highly recommend absorption of everything that if you started at a company, if you're a plumber and you start off, Learn. Stop. Don't just come to work and in days and go, oh, you want me to dig this ditch? Okay, I'll dig the ditch. It's like, learn everything. Go, why are we digging the ditch? What's going on over here? Learn the plumbing. Say, what's this called? What's this shovel called? What's this part called? What's that called? Where do we get that part from? Where does it go? How does this work? How does this fix? Learn every single thing, guys. And then that moves you into the next phase. Once I've learned, it's the same thing with when I worked at ATC. After I'd learned everything, I got bored. And that's one reason why I got fired. All right, now I've learned everything at the computer wholesale, and I basically have come to a level where I'm so tired. Like I could sell more than my boss could buy, but my boss was not financially fit in order to buy what needed to be bought to be sold. So it was basically to the point where it was too easy a job, guys. It was probably the easiest time that I ever had in my entire life working, because there was no stress whatsoever. I could easily make lots and lots of money. Still not making 100K, but making a comfortable living. Making, let's say, 60,000, but at the time that was like making 70,000, right? Because this was a few years ago, right? So I'm making good money. I'm one of the greats, the top salesperson. I'm either number 1 or number 2. The only reason why I was number 1 or number 2 is because my buddy, he liked to sell stuff at cost. So he'd sell, and he knows who he is, right? So he'd sell everything like $1 or $2 above cost, and I made greater margins. So my margin would be higher, but his total sales would be higher. His margin would be lower, right? So I'd make the most margin in the company, and I thought, you know what? Margin's what counts, so I win. But at the same time, though, total sales counts too. So at this point, then in the mail, I got an offer for a credit card, and I applied for it. And I got a credit card. It's my very first credit card, which I should have gotten. I should have applied for a credit card earlier. Guys, when you first start out in life, you have to start your credit history as soon as possible. But you can't run up your credit card, all right? So it's a double-edged sword. It's like you have to start it, but at the same time, though, you can't use it. And by use it, I mean let it sit, let balances carry over. Well, I got my first credit card. It was like $2,000. And back then, that was a lot of money. I was like, wow, I've got $2,000. I have savings. I'd already started a side hustle. I'd already been hustling. I'd already started making money. My side hustle almost paid my main bills. I just had a $2,000 credit card. I had a couple $1,000s in the bank. And I was like, you know what? I'm ready to start my own business. This was the first business I'd ever started in my entire life. I was like, I'm ready to start my own business. I walked into my boss's office, and I was gonna tell him, you're blah, 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 blah. This is the worst company to ever work for. The girlfriend that I had at the time, she said, why don't you take a different strategy? And I listened to her smartly, and she was correct. And I walked in, and I said, I really appreciate the opportunity to work here. And he's like, where are you going? Where are you going? What place are you going to? What place are you going to? And I was like, I'm not going to any place. I'm going to start my own business. And he's like, whoa, what are you going to do? What? And he's like, are you sure? Because he thought for sure I was going to go work for the competition. Nope, I didn't go work for the competition. I started my own retail business. I already had the business going, and I was ready to go. So I went, and then the next part, that lucked out. Got my first big giant sale immediately, right? Immediately I got my first big giant sale. And guys, when I got the $10,000, I got the $10,000 order right out of the gate. When you get the massive sale right out of the gate, basically you're like, okay, well now I can make it for 3 more months, right? And 3 more months, that's basically it. You got a 3-month window there, and now if I can make the next sale be within the next 2 or 3 weeks, then I can make it 3 more months on top of that, and I've got an emergency fund for my emergency fund for my emergency fund. Now I will never go out of business. Now it's time to rock and roll. And I had all the skills. I had all the skills to make that business work, and I was ready to start. And I was living in an apartment, one of the most beautiful apartments I've ever had. Now it wasn't super fancy. It was basically like almost in a retirement home. But at the same time, it was quiet, had a view of the pool, was like on the 4th floor or something. Just gorgeous apartment. And I started the business there. In my bedroom, I had my computer set up. I had all my parts, and I was selling stuff, and I was selling computers. And that was my first business, day 1, out of the gate. And from there, the rest was history on that computer company that I built. Guys, these videos are going to be extremely long. So if it's interesting, I'll keep talking. You keep watching. I know that it's going to be long stuff, so I don't expect everybody to watch it till the end. But if you have watched it to the end and you're getting value out of this, everybody starts from somewhere, guys. Everybody, you can start off at the bottom where you're getting your ass beat by random people in school or in life. You can start off on the streets hustling. You can start off working in the mall, which is where I started off working. You can start off working at Subway. It doesn't matter where you guys are. It doesn't matter what you're going through. You can change. You can change it all. Luckily, you guys have YouTube. Luckily, you guys can learn from examples of other individuals who started off with basically nothing and worked their way up. And this is basically where I started off. I did come from a nice family, but my dad decided that he didn't really want to be rich, so he decided he was gonna live the pauper's life. So I didn't have a safety net, guys, and that was kind of a good thing, because when you don't have a safety net, guys, you don't, you know, it all relies upon you. You're gonna have to work harder than everyone else. You know that you're the only guy in the world that's gonna pay your bills, and that's how that helped me. Forced me to become good, it forced me to become great, and it forced me to become where I am today. So guys, I appreciate you watching this video. This is part 1. I know it's an hour long. I know it's a lot of information. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm wearing a sweatshirt because I'm basically telling you that this is my, this is my Rocky outfit. Rocky, oh, right? Guys, this is coming from nothing. Tighten your bootstraps, make it work, get it done. Anybody can succeed, guys. This is where I started off with nothing. You can start off with nothing. And I know a lot of you are probably going to start off with a little bit more than that. A lot of you are lucky and you have great parents that were there for you and made sure you got through college, or they made sure that you got a good job. They gave you some sort of safety net, and that's great too, guys. But at the same time, though, we can all be more successful than we are. We all come from somewhere, and we're all going somewhere. And let's make every day more successful than the last. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I'm going to go into more detail in all the businesses, starting from where I started my computer business in the next video. I thank you for tuning in, and I'd really like for you to, and before I forget, press the like button, press the subscribe button. I always forget, guys. I get so tied up in my stories. They get so long, right? And basically, I'm getting high here because it's late at night, and I'm talking, and I'm exhausted. And I'm trying to get you the best, funniest story I possibly can. So I forget to tell you to do the like. I forget to tell you to subscribe. And guys, obviously, leave a comment. And you know what? It is perfectly okay for you to make fun of me selling purses in the mall. It's perfectly okay for you to make fun of me for being homeless. Or anything else, guys. I love all your comments. Everybody on here has been too nice. I'm scared. I'm waiting for I need some trolls. Alright, so I need somebody to troll me. Alright, so I know you're out there, and I want the troll so I can get with it. So I appreciate it, guys. I'll see you in the next one.